So what I want to talk about, just one slide, moral freedom, and what I'm going to do is talk in terms of what I'm referring to as authentic freedom versus modern freedom. By modern freedom, I just mean it's contemporary. I'm not saying it's the only time it's ever appeared in history. Already?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is this part of like the
Imago Dei, yes.
That's part of it.
Correct. Now, how necessary this is probably one of the most critical slides you'll see the entire semester. If you don't understand this, a lot of the other things that we're going to learn will not make sense. At least it won't make sense in the way that I'm delivering it to you. Why this is important. Before I finish that out for you, let me just say that, freedom is one of those ideas that how many people throughout the course of human history have died for. And yes, we, have died for, freedom from tyranny, okay? But we've also died for the freedom to do that which we want to do, okay? So, in the United States, our separation from England wasn't the end of the freedoms we were looking for. We then wanted to be a good democracy, so we had to exercise our freedom. Too often we think today in terms of rights. We're going to talk more in terms of what are we freely meant to do. So let's start out by saying one's notion of freedom determines one's choices, actions, and judgments. This will determine your choices, actions, and judgments. There is little to precious nothing that does not come underneath this type of freedom. So there's not a lot of neutral, I guess I should say. Now, once again, when I'm saying a modern notion of freedom, I mean our contemporary understanding of it. And if we had more time, I would find, or if this were an upper level course, I would find a lot of examples throughout the news, or I'd have you find examples throughout the news that showed people's confusion in this regard. So this is obviously the negative one. A modern notion of freedom. They see freedom as a lack of restraint, okay? Freedom is a lack of restraint. So to do what you wish. If you don't get to do what you want, then you feel like you don't have freedom. If your parents don't let you go somewhere that you'd like to go, or the school doesn't let you do something that you want to do, you act like your freedoms are being impinged upon, right? And unfortunately, again, we live in a country where whatever our wants and desires are, we always frame them in terms of rights, because that sounds good. You have no right to do this, that kind of thing, okay? And I'm not talking about genuine rights. So what happens then is when you think freedom is a lack of restraint, any law or rule, I'm using the word law, you see it as an imposition from the outside, okay? You see it as an imposition from the outside. So so-called laws from God, or so-called rules we'd have in the church. A Christian sees those with this misunderstanding of freedom as something that's imposed on them. I can't choose what I want to do with my own body. I can't choose who I want to marry and how I want to marry. I mean, we always see these things as somebody taking away our freedoms. So we see that law imposed to us from the outside. So what, if you had to sum up what is meant by this modern notion of freedom, I would say to lack freedom that inherently means the person cannot choose what is good or evil for themselves, or by themselves, however you want to say it. To lack freedom that inherently means the person cannot choose good or evil for themselves. Nobody starts out by, and when I contrast this, hopefully it'll make more sense. Nobody starts out by saying, I want to decide for myself what is good and evil. I mean, nobody talks like that. What happens is we talk in terms of our freedoms being impinged on us, saying, don't tell us what we should do, because in essence, we want to determine whether or not what we are doing is genuinely good or genuinely evil. I'm using specific language so that you can get how we are participating in the sin of Adam and Eve. They wanted to eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. We still do that, all right? We don't talk in those terms, but we still do it.
What if people put laws on your position
from the outside? Now, an authentic notion of freedom, by contrast, and this is what I would say is the Catholic understanding of freedom. Rather than a lack of restraint, freedom is understood as being in line with one's nature. Freedom is understood as being in line with one's nature. And just let me say, too, that a lack of restraint, there is a certain legitimacy to that freedom. I mean, if you were imprisoned against your will for no justified or legitimate cause, you know, that would be a lack of freedom. But we're talking moral freedom here, okay? So freedom is understood as being in line with one's nature. Then, if you understand it being in line with one's nature, then a law, rather than being posed from the outside, a law follows the design of man and governs him from the inside.
What do you mean by being in line with one's nature?
I will explain that, yeah. I'm going to put these up because I'm going to give you examples. Hopefully that'll clear it up. But that's a good question, though. A law follows the design of man and governs him from the inside. Well, we could talk, we could talk about the commandments, we could talk about, let me just give you a couple examples, and then if it's not clear, then you ask me then, William, okay? So, then here, if I ask you for a definition of freedom, this is it. This is it. Freedom then inherently means the ability to do that which we were designed to do. I'll repeat that. Freedom then inherently means the ability to do that which we were designed to do. The ability to do that which we were designed to do. So let me contrast these, and I'm going to give you more than a couple examples. By the way, as an aside, and I say these asides again just to fill in the blanks, because some of you guys have more curious mind than others, and you'll make the connections. Other people just write, what should I write down so I can give it back on a test? Again, I struggle to go beyond that. The Enlightenment ideals, right, after the French Revolution, gave us some great things. Human rights and the thriving for human rights, that came from that, and sort of religious freedom. But unfortunately, though, they were not based on things that are true and eternal. They were based on things called positivism. They were based in skepticism. So when I talk about a person's nature, they might deny that a person has a particular nature, or that you could not know it. So let me give you an example so you can understand exactly what I mean. Here would be, okay, you buy a car, right? Used or not, doesn't matter. And it has a manual in it. One of the rules in that manual says you have to do this every 3,000 to 4,000 miles to your engine. What does it tell you to do?
Oil change?
Okay. Now that would be a law or a rule. Okay. Now, why do they tell you to do that? Why does the manufacturer tell you to do that? Yes.
So that the vehicle stays in good running condition.
So the manufacturer knows the design of the vehicle and says this is necessary maintenance to allow the car to do that which the car was designed to do. We call that freedom. Now, nobody does this with a car. I'm using this as an example. What if you said, screw that? Why are they can't tell me what to do. They made up a rule that I have to do this. I can do what I want. As a matter of fact, I don't need to use oil. I'll use molasses. Now, if you did that, you'd be going against the design of the car, because you would see the so-called rule as a restraint on you. It's not letting you do what you want. I don't want to do that. But the manufacturer who knows the design of the car said it's healthier for the car, in a sense, using healthy analogously, right? That it could do that which it's designed to do. That's the modern notion of freedom. I'll give you a personal example. My oldest daughter, when she's 26 now, when she was around 8 or 9, she went over to the piano, and if she heard a song on the radio, she could bap out the melody with 2 fingers, of course, right? But it was pretty good, I thought. I mean, that's an ear for music. If you could listen and then find the keys, and within a few minutes you're playing the melody to a song. So, being a dad, I like to nurture that, right? But I don't push anything on my kids. I never did. I always thought it had to come from them. I said, hey, Nikki, why don't you take some piano lessons? I'll pay for them. I said, because you obviously have an ear for it. She goes, I don't want to take piano lessons. All right. So I thought I'll use my demonstration to show her why she should. I said, wouldn't you like to freely play what you want? She was like, I can. And she starts hitting the keys. I says, a toddler, you can put a 4-year-old up there or a 3-year-old, and they can hit the keys. So I had an easy piece of music for piano, Taco Bell's Canon, right? I put it down and I said, play it. She can't read music. I said, you're not free to play it. That's the freedom we're talking about. It wasn't just to do what you want to do. It's could you do it to a perfection. Here's another example. We'll use a fictional, well, we could use Thomas the Tank Engine, right? We need a talking train. So Thomas the Tank Engine, he goes on his train and it goes up, through all the various paths, right? But what does it see? It sees sometimes it passes like the ocean, right? Or gets near the ocean, but it has no idea what it's like to be in sand. And the tracks that the train is on seem like a restriction to it, a restraint. So it talks to Mr. Conductor, which is either George Carlin or Ringo Starr, and says, put me down into the beach. I want to go there, so I can freely go where I want to go. All right? He takes the train, puts the train into the sand, and you could imagine as he starts his wheels up, he just kind of digs down a little bit and then bottoms out. All right. But he also saw the mountains and the trees and everything else. Put me in the hills so I can enjoy the woodlands. He cannot manage the terrain, and obviously he cannot make a turn. Even if it was very, very hard ground, he couldn't make a turn with all the trees. So he says, fine, put me back on the tracks. What initially seemed like a lack of a restraint on him, a lack of freedom, turns out to be the only place he can truly be free, because it matches his design, the ability to do that which he was designed to do. All right. How does that translate to us? We know that there's a discoverable design for the human person. The other day I showed you God's plan for man, man's response to God. If we can know our design, then the only way we can truly be free is to be closer to that design, not farther from it. But in morality, most people see rules and laws as something imposed on them. The 10 Commandments are not an imposition. They're supposed to help us understand and be who we could be. Now, one more example. If you are having health issues, right, with eating and such, or your weight, and you went to the doctor would explain, okay, let's say that you're struggling with borderline type 2 diabetes. The doctor's going to tell you, watch the carbohydrates. Watch the sugary snacks and sodas. Watch refined sugars. Are you getting enough protein? Make sure you get enough rest. They're going to go through all this stuff. What if you told that doctor, what the heck? Where'd you come up with all these rules? They would look at you like you're an idiot. They would say, look, we know the design of the body. We know what is or is not good for the body. Maybe not perfectly, but we know very well what is good for the body. We're trying to get you to act in line with your body so your health becomes a freedom, right? Your ability to do that which you were designed to do. We get it with that. We get it with traffic. Nobody goes to a stop sign and screams, what the heck? Why am I stopping here? You know, if we took away every street sign, that would be lack of restraint, and we'd have absolute anarchy. Nobody would know who to go where, and we'd get in accidents. So we know that those street signs, even if one or two of them might take us off, we know overall they're designed to keep the flow of traffic so that we can freely do what it is that we need to do. So all I'm trying to say is take those analogies and put them into morality. It's based, that's why I said enlightenment ideals. It's based in skepticism. Do we have a nature? Even if we did, could we know it? So if we're saying, because this is a revealed religion, right, that we do know our design, we know our nature, the closer we get in line with that design and nature, the freer we are as human beings. Do you get that? Did that answer your questions? Okay. Is that good?
Yeah, a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, so now that's all I got here.